I wanted to kill those guys. I wanted to maim those guys. I wanted to make them suffer in every way I could.
In December 1984, a single incident aboard a New York City subway train captured national attention, igniting debates on justice, fear, and the limits of self-defense. Join me instead as we cover the story of one of the OGs of F Around and Find Out, Bernhard Goetz, the New York City subway vigilante.
New York City in the 80s was more than just a neon-soaked playground of Wall Street excess and Studio 54 glitter. Return to a decade where in the streets, the war on drugs raged, and below them, subway crime soared.
The 1980s were a challenging time for New York City, to say the very least. Crime rates were soaring, and the subway system was notoriously dangerous. In 1981 alone, there were almost 15,295 transit felonies in New York City. That's felonies, not misdemeanors. As you can imagine, many New Yorkers lived in fear of being targeted during their daily commutes. And against this backdrop of uncertainty, one man's actions would spark a media firestorm. On December 22, 1984, 37-year-old Bernhard Goetz boarded a southbound subway train at the 14th Street station in Manhattan, riding along with 15 to 20 other passengers in the 7th car of a 10-car train. 4 young black men approached him, reportedly asking for money. Feeling threatened, Goetz reacted in a way that would forever change his life and spark a nationwide debate. He drew a concealed item and fired 4 times, injuring 3 of them. "You don't look so bad," Goetz said to one of the youths who was cowering on the subway floor. "Here's another." He fired once more. All 4 men survived, albeit one, Darrell Cabey, who was seriously injured. Hearing the commotion, the conductor entered the train car and asked what was going on. Goetz admitted to the train conductor what happened, claiming the young men tried to rob him. The conductor asked Goetz for his weapon, but he refused to turn it over. Apparently not detained and allowed to leave the scene of the crime, Goetz fled back to his 14th Street apartment, where he promptly rented a vehicle and headed towards Bennington, Vermont. There, he burned his jacket and destroyed his weapon, and made his way around New England. For days he remained at large, while the media frenzy intensified. Presumably, Goetz was coming to the realization that there was no way out. He returned to the city, rented a different vehicle, picked up some personal items at his apartment, and headed back to New England, where he would eventually turn himself in to Concord, New Hampshire police. When Goetz turned himself in to authorities, his story took a surprising turn. He claimed he acted out of self-defense, fearing for his safety. He had been a victim of a violent crime before, in 1981, where at the Canal Street subway station he was accosted by 3 black teens who smashed him into a plate glass door and thrown him to the ground, injuring his chest and knee. When police arrived, the teen accused Goetz of attacking him. That's when Goetz decided it was time to start packing, and applied for a permit, which was denied on account of, quote, insufficient need. Shortly after, Goetz traveled to Florida, where he purchased a .38, which was used in the '84 altercation. Goetz's case quickly divided public opinion. Some viewed him as a hero, standing up to the city's rampant crime, while others saw his actions as excessive and dangerous. Was the assault against the young men racially motivated? He had been known to use racial epithets. In fact, just 18 months before, at a community meeting, Goetz was overheard saying, "The only way we're going to clean up this street is to get rid of the and the." Did he see this as his opportunity to take a bite out of black on white crime? In any event, the Manhattan District Attorney, Robert Morgenthau, presented the case to a grand jury, asking them to consider serious charges, including attempted murder and assault. Initially, the jury only indicted Goetz for possessing an unlicensed you-know-what, 1 for the one used on the subway, and 2 for others found in his home. But the story didn't end there. In March 1985, the DA brought new evidence to light, including testimony from witnesses who were granted immunity. This led to a second grand jury, which added even more charges: attempted murder, assault, and reckless endangerment. However, in early 1986, Judge Stephen Crane dismissed the most serious charges, citing issues with how the grand jury was instructed about self-defense laws and concerns about the credibility of the witnesses. He found that 2 of the victims strongly appeared to have perjured themselves. His legal proceedings were unsurprisingly contentious. In December 1986, jury selection began, and in April 1987, the trial commenced before a Manhattan jury of 10 Caucasians and 2 African Americans, 6 of whom had been the victims of street crime. Goetz faced his victims, 19-year-old Barry Allen, Troy Canty, and the now paralyzed Darrell Cabey, and 18-year-old James Ramser. Goetz admitted what he had done to the 4 youths, but he asserted that his actions were justified. Section 3515(2) of New York's justification statute permitted the use of deadly force when actor, quote, reasonably believes that such other person is using or about to use deadly physical force, or is committing or attempting to commit a kidnapping, other nasty things, or robbery. This intense courtroom drama unfolded on national television, further fueling the debate. Goetz and Cabey did not testify, and Allen asserted his Fifth Amendment privilege. Canty would testify that the 4 men were en route to steal from video arcade machines in Manhattan, and that screwdrivers found in their possession were not meant to be used as weapons against Goetz, but rather to break into the arcade boxes. Ramser testified that Canty approached Goetz alone and that he, Allen, and Cabey remained seated, but Ramser's testimony was stricken after he said that he felt Goetz would be acquitted regardless of evidence or testimony. He eventually refused to answer any of Goetz's attorney's questions, who, by the way, was Barry Slotnick, a defense attorney who had also represented Mafia Don John Gotti. The defense also called police officer Peter Smith, who testified that after he had arrived on scene, Canty told him that the group was planning to rob Goetz. Goetz was found not guilty on the attempted M-word and first-degree assault charges, but was convicted for having an unlicensed item in public, which was considered a third-degree offense. He was initially sentenced to 6 months in jail, a year of psychiatric treatment, 5 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and a $5,000 fine. However, Goetz appealed both the conviction and the sentence. Regarding the conviction, he claimed the judge gave improper instructions to the jury that discouraged them from considering jury nullification. This argument was rejected by both the Appellate Division and the New York Court of Appeals. On the sentence, Goetz argued that the state's laws required a minimum of 1 year for such offenses. At that time, a 6-month sentence meant serving at least 90 days, while a 1-year sentence allowed for potential release after 60 days. The appellate court agreed with Goetz on this point and overturned the original sentence. When the case was returned to Judge Crane, Goetz was resentenced to 1 year in jail and a $5,000 fine. In the end, he served 8 months, earning credit for good behavior. This case didn't just end in the courtroom. It had lasting effects on New York City's policies and laws. It also highlighted the public's frustration with crime and the blurred lines between justice and vigilantism. At first, the public reaction to the shootings was largely supportive. In July 1985, a poll conducted by Daily News and WABC-TV showed that 49% of the 515 New Yorkers surveyed approved of Goetz's actions, while 31% disapproved. A police hotline set up to gather information was flooded with calls, most of them praising Goetz and calling him a hero. By March, the Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau revealed that his office had received letters favoring Goetz by a margin of 3-1. Around the same time, a Gallup poll of 1,009 adults showed that 57% of respondents approved of the shootings, and 2/3 believed Goetz had acted in self-defense. However, there was a noticeable shift in opinion among Black respondents. In January, only 36% of Black participants disapproved of Goetz's actions, but by March, that number had risen to 53%. This sparked heated debates about the role of race in Goetz's decision-making, the public's reaction, and the outcome of the trial, especially given that the jury was predominantly white. Goetz faced a civil suit a month after the subway attack. Darrell Cabey, represented by famed civil rights attorney William Kunstler and Ron Kuby, argued that Goetz's actions had been motivated by race. Cabey, while denying his own involvement, said that Allen, Canty, and Ramser intended to rob Goetz because he looked like, quote, easy bait. When the civil suit went to trial in '96, Cabey's attorneys blamed his brain damage for the non sequitur. Regardless, Goetz was found liable, and the jury, half of which were African American from the Bronx, determined that Goetz had acted recklessly, and intentionally caused emotional distress to KB. They awarded KB $43 million in total, $18 million for pain and suffering, and another $25 million in punitive damages. Following the verdict, Goetz declared bankruptcy, claiming that his legal costs had left him nearly broke. However, a bankruptcy court judge ruled that the $43 million judgment couldn't be dismissed, meaning Goetz was still on the hook. Over the years, Goetz's story has been revisited in documentaries, books, and even fictional adaptations. It remains a powerful example of how a single act can ripple through society, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths. The story of Bernhard Goetz is more than just a tale of crime and consequence. It's a reflection of a city's struggles and a nation's ongoing debate about fear, safety, and morality. What do you think? Was Bernhard Goetz a hero, or did he cross the line? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping tales of true crime and pop culture from, guess who, the Gen X Files. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious. TTFN, ta-ta for now.